Serbian Football Show. This is your host, Milos speaking. Hope everyone's having a good night. Welcome to another week of crazy, exciting, and random as hell Serbian football news and action. This week we are joined by a couple of guests, as always. My man Luca in DC. Luca, how's the crypto doing today?
Hey man, it's going to the moon, as they say.
Bitcoin, you bought the dip?
Bro, of course, man, of course. What I preach on Twitter, I do.
There you go. Alex, how's life in Belgrade? How are you doing tonight?
The investment in low-budget COVID vaccines and penny stocks is blowing through the roof, boys, so you can expect me to be a millionaire anytime soon.
Hell yeah.
But, I'm doing good. It's a shame that we don't have our mate from down under here, but, he's there in spirit, so we'll have a hell of a show without him.
Unfortunately, no Veli today. By night, he is a passionate, ranting Serbian Aussie that loves football, but by day, he's actually a high-ranking executive in a multinational company.
Who would have thought, huh?
Who would have thought? But he actually has some work to do and some important work as well, so he can't really be on the show today. But I know he's dying to be on. But we'll have Ellie back next week, hopefully when his schedule's a little less crazy. So, boys, a lot of things to talk about this week. A lot of crazy news today as well, of course, with the Arsene Wenger rumors and all that. But let's just switch it up today and talk about Zvezda first and their amazing performance last week in the Europa League against Ghent. Big win. That was a must-win game for Ghent as they were hoping to stay alive. They were at home. Zvezda was missing a bunch of key players. All the pressure was on, and what can you say? The team showed up. They were up to the task. They passed the test with flying colors. Really in control for most of the game. Kent had some possession, but they didn't really threaten too much or they had some serious chances, but not many. I think that performance last week was even more impressive than the performance against Liberec, where it was 5-0 or whatever. But I think this performance was just there's more. It was a tougher game in my opinion against a better team and a tougher situation with more pressure. And they did an even better job than they did in that 5-1 win, if that's even possible. But to me, it was a lot more impressive. Luca, what about you? What are your thoughts on the Europa League run so far in the game last week?
Yeah, man, I'd have to agree with you, man. I think the last game against Ghent away was the most impressive game by Zvezda yet in this Europa League campaign. Mainly because half the team was out, so we were really missing a bunch of our core players, including Katai. So the way that they were able to come out, get that goal very early, a beautiful goal too, even though I believe their goalkeeper could have done a little bit more, but a beautiful goal nonetheless, man, unexpected. And the way that they played and the way that it just seemed like a professional win, man, like when you're missing half the team and some core players and you come out and do that in a must-win high-energy game like that, I thought it was a great showing by the boys, and I think a lot of the credit needs to go to the work that Dejan Stankovic is doing. Obviously, it's translating to the team. You can see that they're fighting for the shirt. You can see that the boys are playing hard, and I'm really loving what Stankovic is doing with that team.
For sure, man. And if you look at the last game against Ghent, we took the lead. And at the end, it was miracle saves by Borjan that secured a result. And I kind of had a feeling like, oh my God, they scored first. This is going to be a long 89 minutes now. They're going to absorb pressure, but that didn't happen at all. We were mostly in control, very calm, and as you mentioned, a very professional performance. And I was surprised because I was expecting it to be kind of like the last game, where it was a very nervous second half. We were going to give up a lot of possession, a lot of chances. Boyan had to stand on his head and make some great saves, but that didn't happen at all. And that shows the maturity and the experience of this team. And Stankovic, of course, a lot of tactics, they're kind of done by his assistants, but he is a player's coach. He's a motivator. You see the scenes after the games when all the players are huddled up. He's passionate. He's giving them his speech and all that. Like you can tell that these players would die for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%, man. I totally agree, dude. And it's also funny, man. Before the game, on the podcast previous to that, we were talking. We were like, hey, we'll be happy with a draw coming out of Ghent. And we go out there and get that kind of win. I'm very impressive, man, and it just makes me look forward that much more to the Hoffenheim game
Yeah,
coming
exactly. Tomorrow, and also, I mean, basically with that win last week, it was as a secured spot in the knockout stages. Well, 99.9% secure spot in the knockout stages unless get pummeled 5-0 by Liberec, which I don't think is going to happen. So I think basically it's a done deal, and they'll be advancing, which is an amazing achievement, especially when you consider how rough the year started, especially with the transfer window. Striker came late, didn't get a left back, didn't really improve the defense too much. Things were, Kung got transferred, didn't make any sense, and he's done okay since, but started off rough as well. So a lot of things have gone against this team. And I don't think anybody expected them to advance out of the groups. I know I certainly didn't. The group was not the hardest group, but the way they were playing earlier in September and October, I didn't really think that they would be doing so well right now. And the team has grown. It's definitely a big impact. Stankovic, the players are buying in. They're believing what he's telling them. It's a unit. It's a cohesive unit, and the morale is high. The confidence is high. And when you have a team that believes in their manager, that believes in themselves, that has experience in these games, and that has experience in general, the sky's the limit. And now, excited to see who they'll face in the next round and how the next games go. Because another win, if it gets one more win in this group stage, I believe that will secure us that spot for the two clubs in the Champions League qualifying starting in 2023. So one more win, I think that's what I saw on that amazing Twitter account, We Global Football, that posts all the great coefficient news and stats and reports and stuff. So that would be huge for our football. And I know Partizan fans don't like Zvezda at all, but it would be amazing if they helped each other out in this way, because that's only going to benefit our football, bring more eyes, and another chance to get two clubs into the group stage, which would be amazing. Alex, what were your thoughts on the game last week in general?
Well, I mean, we were saving you guys for years when you guys couldn't get into Europe. It's about time you brought back the favor. So, kidding aside, it was a really, really impressive performance that I think showcased the maturity of this team, which had to show. I mean, they've been playing in Europe for 3 years now, and it was expected that they're going to have experience going into these games, but I can't remember the last time a Serbian club went and beat the team from the first pot in the group twice, and that's a huge achievement. The goal itself from Njegos Petrovic was fantastic. I think that it was big that he was the one who scored it, because he is, I have friends that really, really rate him highly, and I've seen him play, and I know that he has the potential to be much better than he's been, but he has been one of the worst players in the team so far this season, and for him to score from that distance was very similar to the Boachi goal against Kelm a couple of years back. It was kind of a similar position. I think that this shot was more of a cross than a shot, but we can leave that debate for another day. And after that, it was a fantastic performance in the midfield, especially when you don't have Sanogo, when you don't have Kanga, you don't have even Rodic or Katai on the wing. I mean, that's your whole left wing that was taken out. And they did well. The tactical change going from 3 at the back in defense to 4 at the back, shifting nonstop, being able to get guys like Bukanovic and others to perform well when they haven't played for a long time. The corner goal, Milinovic with a huge rebound in the sense that he was terrible in the first game and was fantastic in the second game. The header goal, many great clearances. Ghent were missing some key players. They didn't start Gigi Foy. They don't have Roman Yaremchuk. But, this is still a team that's in the Belgian league that is leaps and bounds better than ours. And it was a real smash and grab performance. It's a huge success. I mean, it's the second time that they've pretty much gone through the group. And every win's important as far as the coefficient stands. I think that the best Twitter account, I'm going to give a shout out to my friend Play Tony, who does a fantastic job on Twitter. Give him a shout out because he's the one who does all the calculations. We're not far off that 15th spot for next year, although a lot of things have to go our way, and the Zvezda has to keep winning. Considering that Real Madrid is dropping down to the Europa League, it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. But no, it was fantastic. You're going to have other guys to come back in. I mean, everyone played really well. Especially the two center backs were really good. The midfield massively outperformed expectations. It was a different approach than what I would have had, because I would have gone for it because of the lack of defensive options, and you had some attacking options. But when you saw Katai was out, you saw that Ben wasn't really fit. Vukanovic had to come in and start. It was a really, really resounding performance against a team and against the type of football that's given Zvezda nightmares in the past. You don't have to remember all the the failures against French teams and even against Belgian teams. The first win that they've had in Belgium. So it was impressive, and I give them a lot of credit. I think Stankovic, is in a different club, it wouldn't work, but I think that the connection between someone was a great player for the club and someone who's a motivator can work because, look at Andriy Shevchenko. He's not, I mean, I think he's a better tactician than Stankovic, but he's not like, Pep Guardiola or anything like that. But because he's managing Ukraine and because everyone respects him, because he's the best player that they've had in the last I don't know how many years, when he tells you something, you're going to give everything. When Dan Stankovic shows up at the Zvezda training pitch, like, he's going to get 150% out of them, and that's a really, really good sign and a really good benefit when you have an ex-player that's managing you. And he's done well. I think that he's been improving. I was very skeptical of him in the first 6 months of this calendar year because things were going nowhere. Zvezda looked terrible. But I think that despite him losing in the ammonia game, that was actually his best tactical setup, and then things were getting better and better. So he's done a great job. We'll see what they do against Hoffenheim, and I hope that they have the mindset of trying to be first in the group. I think it would make it a lot easier. They wouldn't have to worry about the teams dropping down for the Champions League. I think Hoffenheim, I can't say is there for the taking, but they've beaten better teams in the past. So it's big. More wins boost the coefficient. More wins are going to get money into the club budget. So it was a great night. It was a very impressive night considering all the injuries. They showed a lot of character, and it was very impressive.
Every win is another $570,000 into the club's account, which is massive for any Serbian club. And I think, Hoffenheim is already through. They have their max points, right? So I don't see them being that up for tomorrow's game. Obviously, they'll be up for it because they'll probably play some players that don't play that much, and they're trying to earn some minutes. So obviously, those guys will always try hard and put their best foot forward. But I would expect them not to start their strongest squad. I would also expect them not to go all out because they don't really need a win. So it's a good opportunity for Zvezda to get another result, at least a draw. Build a coefficient, get more confidence going forward. And I think if the first game against Hoffenheim was pretty actually decent performance, a couple unlucky, got a little unlucky. I think Zvezda could have at least gotten a draw there. A draw would have probably been a more fair result than a loss, if I'm honest. And that game, it was a pretty solid performance, and it was surprising because I thought Hoffenheim would run away with it in the first game.
Considering the best players were out, Katai was out, Ben was out.
Yeah.
So it was really good in that sense. I think it's going to be interesting because Hoffenheim is really struggling in the Bundesliga. They haven't won since they beat Bayern. So they've been really struggling with injuries too. I mean, they've secured it in Europa, so that could be a good chance. I mean, we have to be fair and understand that, if Ghent was fully fit and if Hoffenheim had all their players fit and if they were rolling, this group would be much harder. But, I mean, there have been times in the past where Serbian clubs have been ruined by administrative issues, Zvezda having to play in Bulgaria and Partizan having to play in, Herzegovina and things like that. So it's about time that those kind of non-footballing things and the tides turn. And I guess it's a good thing that we're used to operating in chaos, so teams from here can adjust to it without a problem. I think for teams that come from Germany and Belgium and France, it's a bit weird how those disadvantages that we have actually became our advantages, and I think it's been perfectly shown in this season. So it's very interesting.
That's right. We've been playing with empty stands and horrible preparation for 25 years, so that's nothing new. Nothing new for any Serbian club, right? For a Belgian club, it's a little different because they have their nice little comfy fans, great family atmosphere, and that they're used to, right? So it's not something they're used to. Definitely, especially a club like Ghent with their history, definitely not used to something like this. No fans, injuries, COVID. And a team coming in that's riding high and full of experience and believes in their coach. And I think that's the thing. When you have a manager that's as passionate as Stankovic, that's as respected, that's as revered by all the players, they know his ties to the club, his history as a player, the type of person he is, it's very hard not to give it your all. And you're definitely right, Alex. He has that connection with the club, the crest, and the players. That's rare to find, and once you have it, your team can really do anything against anybody because they'll always be up for the challenge, and that's a great thing to see. And hopefully it continues, and we see maybe another giant fall in the knockout stage if need be, if that happens. Luca, what are you expecting for the game tomorrow? what result you think we can pull off? They can pull off a draw or
Yeah.
at least a win.
Yeah, man. I'm gonna keep the tradition alive. I'm gonna hope for a draw, and then they can surprise me with a win. That would be awesome. The game is at home tomorrow, right? In the Maracana.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. Obviously we don't have the fans there, but I think we played pretty well there this season. So I'm gonna go with a draw, dude, on this one, and I think we can actually get a point from it for sure.
And I think I can speak for Veli when he says, "You're gonna wake up at 4 a.m., mate.
Yeah,
You're gonna win, right?"
You already know. You already know.
Bless his heart, he wakes up when times no one else would.
Right.
He's gonna be up at 4 a.m. Hopefully, there's a good performance waiting for him tomorrow from Zvezda. Alex, so let's talk about some Partizan news today too. With the news about our boy Lazar Markovic, on his way out, most likely from your beloved club. After not really doing anything so far this season, he was all right in parts of last season, but I think he also had some injury concerns, which seems to always be a problem with him.
When doesn't he? When does he not have injury concerns?
He's always has some knocks or some injuries, throughout his career. What are your thoughts on the end of or the upcoming end of his time at Partizan, and what about his short run back at the club?
Well, he was signed, I guess, as a free agent in the last hour. He was signed past the deadline. I wasn't expecting him to be anywhere close to what he used to be. I think the goal that he scored against Seattle last season, and one of the dribbles that he had where he flipped it over 3 or 4 people, at once show that he had the talent. I think he's at the point where he doesn't even have the talent. It's a very indicative thing. I think the thing that's bothered me most is the complete protection that he's received from the new regime. We haven't really talked much considering the coaching change, Milosevic, Stanovic, and things like that. It's a wider issue of the club is the fact that instead of building for the future, we've decided to make a 2012 All-Star team, and the fact that he's been given such protection and given the captaincy when he has not only shown no efficiency, he has shown no effort. He has shown no body language. He has shown no fitness. You have guys like Sasha Stieler and others that are killing themselves every game and that are having to play in much tougher conditions and are playing for much less money than he is. And I never rated him. I knew he was very talented, but I always considered Živkovic and especially Filip Stevanovic, who's now off to Man City. I considered them bigger talents when they were at the club, and I still do. And this is not, revisionist history. I just think that he is what he is. He used his pace and he used his trickery to play well at one point in time. Portuguese football suited him. He didn't have luck at Liverpool, but he was getting such good money that I think he threw away his career. You saw his loan spells in Anderlecht and Fenerbahce and other places. It just didn't work. And, he's come in. He's been shifted around. He's been playing in the wing. He's been playing as striker. He's been playing behind the striker. And he's shown no pace. He's shown no willingness. In the derby, it was really apparent. In the derby, Suma started off the first 20 minutes like gangbusters and probably would have been the best player on the pitch. And then Markovic comes in and we can't even cross the halfway line. Part of that was down to the tactic that we played. But it's playing on old benefits. Old benefits, if such a thing can even exist. I think it's the same thing with them bringing back guys like Milosevic and Živkovic, who I have nothing against. I think that they're players who should be there, but they're given such importance that you're ruining the club. You're ruining other players that really could have some potential, like Denis Stojkovic or Filip Hollander or Asano, who's been our best player this season. So the complete protection that he's received has bothered me. The fact that he just doesn't even seem to care, and the fact that he doesn't seem to want to get into shape, and the fact that he's just comfortable living his life out. He looks like he's coming out of a nightclub every day, and maybe he is. So I'm not sorry to see him leave, and I know that maybe sounds cold and harsh, but I think that the fact that we're just kind of stuck in place right now, and the fact that I understand why Milosevic brought him in. He was the biggest name that we could bring in at that particular point in time. We didn't really have a lot of money for anyone else, and it was worth a gamble, but the gamble's not paid off, and I think that the more benefits he's given, and he's going to keep getting given benefits because of the fact that his manager, the manager that we have right now, launched him into the stratosphere at the club in his first spell. The more we're going to suffer for it because it's rewarding negative behavior. There's principles in psychology that reward positive and negative behavior. He's getting dispossessed. He's not keeping up in shape. He's not doing anything productive. He hasn't scored. He hasn't assisted. And instead of, he's getting all the protection, and then Suma and Sadiq and other guys are getting called out in the media, and they're getting benched and stuff like that, and other players are playing for a lot less money. It's not his issue, but he's contributing to it immensely. And I don't even know who's going to take him. I'm sure some team in China or Saudi Arabia is going to take him, but I think that he's...
You know who's going to take him? The number one club that always takes expertise on players that are over the hill. Gensler Birligi.
Exactly. Marko, you have to shake your heart out, even though he's not Gensler Birligi. He's somewhere
else. Doing good, yeah, he's doing good. But, they took Tomic and a bunch of other guys.
He scored an amazing bicycle kick a few weeks ago, but... I wouldn't be sorry to see him leave. I think that it's a shame that the club is turning to something right now. I mean, it's a wider issue because instead of building for the future and understanding that it's going to be very difficult in the current climate that the league is in to win titles, to put it politely, and instead of focusing on Europe to build the coefficient so we can play the Europa League and maybe get that second spot in the Champions League, we've thrown all our eggs into this season's basket when things were clearly going wrong, and we've thrown it all in right now, and it's not paid off. And the protection that he's been getting has been astonishing to me. I understand the injuries, but, 1 or 2 injuries is fine. I mean, 75 or 6 times in a one-year span, it shows that he's just comfortable collecting the checks and that, he's being hailed as the golden boy. He's been given the captaincy, which is really insulting for me. I think the captaincy should mean something, and it's a very depressing situation because I don't know where the club is trying to go. I don't see any long-term strategy. I don't see any point in what we're doing right now. We have a very talented team. So, and he's just a perfect microcosm of that. And if he leaves, then... good riddance, but I don't see how we're going to get rid of him unless we just release him and take a pay cut, even though we've done dumber things in the past. So it is what it is.
He's still a name, though, so I think somebody's going to pay, probably a club from Asia, right, is going to pay some money for him. Obviously, he'll lose money on that, but he's still a name. He's still 26 years old, so somebody will
justify. If they could pay, money for 33-year-olds on Antošić, they'll pay money for him. So, I mean, there's always that option, but...
There's always a market for players that play in the Premier League, especially players like him who are still young, relatively young, even though he looks like he's 45 now.
And I don't want to say that he wasn't a good player. I mean, his one season at Benfica, he was gangbusters, and the guy clearly had talent, but he just seemingly didn't care and took it all as check. I mean, people give Živković all the crap in the world, but at least he played, and his position wasn't working well, and he wasn't treated well by the club and things like that. And now he's gone back to PAOK, and he's trying to revive his career. That he partially screwed up, and other things didn't work for him. I mean, this guy has been standing in the same place for 6 years. I mean, and he's regressed from his Benfica days, which is even worse. So, I mean, Živković is getting plastered by our fans as the lazy traitor who just went for the money. I'm not sure what you can call Markovic.
Are we ready to call it? Are we ready to call a career on Lazar Markovic? Is that it for him?
I think if Stanojević can't get anything out of him, well, who's going to? Because that's his coach, right? That's the guy that brought him in. He had his best years with him. They have a great history, and if he can't get something out of him, who is going to get something out of him at this stage?
I mean, he's given him everything. He's given him the captaincy. He's given him the support. I mean, he's pretty much... And Milosevic tried to throw a harsher approach and to whip him, and in the sense that he kind of criticized him in the media and tried to get him back on point. I mean, they've tried everything with him, and you just get to a point where you just have to give up on something. It doesn't matter how much you try. If they're not willing to change, you have to meet them halfway, and he's not willing to meet them halfway. And if he doesn't want to change, then, what's the point? I mean, I'd much rather have guys like, Dragan Ninkovic and other guys that I didn't necessarily like for their attitude. At least they would blow up, at least they would scream and shout, and they would get sent off. But at least you could tell that they cared. They just cared in the wrong way. He just looks completely despondent and indifferent to everything, and considering how drastic the situation that the club is right now, it's pretty embarrassing to be like that, and considering the fact that we're probably going to be playing in that conference league if we qualify, considering that there's no long-term strategy at the club, the fact that he's been given such a status where he's almost undroppable. I mean, he has the captaincy. Like, you have to understand how horrible that is, and you have guys that are really busting their tail off every week. It's really insulting to my intelligence. I have to say it. It's insulting to my intelligence. Good riddance if he leaves. I want to see him leave. I've seen enough from him. I saw enough from him in the derby. I saw enough from him in other games, and to see that he just doesn't care. And if he hasn't changed by now, I mean, he's had a year to get into shape, and if he hasn't done anything by now, he's not going to do anything in the future. So sell him for some money.
To me, he doesn't seem like the type of guy who's out, partying and not training. He just seems like someone who's having maybe some mental issues. If you guys remember that video, the pre-World Cup video where Atsjanovic went to all our players and talked to them and met with them, and Markovic was in that one. And remember that scene where he's like, "Oh, I'm not even going to make the World Cup," and then people at Liverpool try to end my career and stuff like that. He seems so depressed and bitter. So I think a lot of it is his personality as a person. He seems like he's more of of a reserve guy. He seems like someone that would stay at home and sulk rather than going out there and prove people wrong. Because just in that video alone, you saw a lot of his personality, and you saw that he was not doing well. You could see that he was not doing well mentally. I mean, he already gave up on going to the World Cup.
Yeah, it's a big hit to go.
He gave up on going to the World Cup.
Yeah.
He gave up on making it.
Right.
Like he just seemed like someone that was finished mentally, and I think that's the main issue with him, is the mental. And he was definitely I remember those years when he was playing in the Europa League against Inter Milan. He was a very explosive player. He had some trickery, some dribbles. His finishing was never that good.
Don't mention it a lot. I still remember that chance he missed in the 86th minute, and we can see that the moment after. So don't mention that.
But I think talent-wise, you could argue that he wasn't that talented, but I saw a lot of potential in him, and he certainly showed a lot more than many of our players that went abroad and didn't do much, or even did more than he did. So he was definitely had talent. I just believe that his mentality, his demeanor, and I guess his persona is not cut out for this. It's not cut out for this world of criticism, ups and downs, being in the public eye and people talking about you. Because if you are a professional at that level and you don't believe that you're good enough to go in your country's 24-man World Cup squad,
right?
And at the time, he was actually playing for Anderlecht. I think he came off like a month where he scored 3 goals. So there could have been an argument made that he could make it into the team, and this guy didn't have any belief that he would make it. And that just said a lot to me. And once I saw that, I'm like, okay, he's not going anywhere.
Well, to be fair, the criteria for making a World Cup squad are more than football based. You do know that, so I can understand why he would feel maybe a little bit like apprehensive when it comes to that. But
but you never say that. You never say that.
Exactly, and if the life's not for him, I mean, and considering the amount of money he took and stole from Liverpool, it felt like. He's made enough where, unless he wasted it all, which considering his hair and the way he looks, he probably wasted it all on scotch and donuts and stuff. But if the money he's made, he can live a comfortable life. And if his heart's not in it, maybe he's just that fragile. Maybe the injuries are just that bad. I mean, there are players like that, like Abou Diaby was like that, and other guys are like that. But then you kind of just admit to yourself, he seems like he's in denial of where he is right now, and he wants to be where he was, but he can't get to where he was because he doesn't want to. And but again, I'll repeat it. The status that he's been given at the club just mystifies me, because he was, I can't say a bench warmer with Milosevic, but he was trying to get into the lineup and he was fighting there. And now he's like, it's like 2012, like he's like the new star of the team, and it's like, have you even seen what's happened in the meantime? So it's very frustrating, because it seems like we're going backwards instead of going forward.
Luca, what about you? Are you ready to throw in the towel on one of our most talented youngsters' careers at age 26?
Hey, Milos, I've been ready to throw in the towel on him, dude. Quite honestly, it seemed like the man was defeated long ago, and this is just him being a former shell of himself and trying to go through the motions and trying to collect a paycheck. That's what it seems to me anyway. Obviously, I don't know him or the situation or what's going on, but on the surface level, that's definitely what it seems like. So I most definitely am ready to throw in the towel and move on from Lazar Markovic.
With our mentality, I think a lot of our players would be wise to invest in a sports psychologist. I know it's not really a common thing in our clubs right now. It's very common in bigger leagues and in MLS, obviously, and stuff like that, where things happen. Players get depressed, they get down. Everybody's a different personality, and it's like people, right? Some of your friends, they can brush things off their shoulder, and other friends, things stick to them, and they get down.
Human beings are not machines.
Yeah, exactly. And some people can't hide. They can't hide feelings, and you can see it on him that this guy is hurting,
Right.
And someone like that, he should have been invested. Like, he has a lot of money. He's made a lot of money in the Premier League from his transfers and all that. So you can definitely invest in that. And it's probably too late now, but he should have been doing something like that, I think, earlier. And whoever his agent is or whoever is working with him and advising him should have definitely advised him on things like that, because I think it would be very beneficial, especially for us, for our players who are so up and down, bipolar, even us as a people, kind of bipolar, right? So it's very beneficial in our football and things going forward as we try to progress as a footballing nation, that stuff like that gets implemented, because a lot of, especially someone like him who was a teenager when he went abroad, definitely wasn't ready for what was waiting for him. Something.
But the thing is, he was ready because his first season he was incredible at Benfica. So it wasn't like he didn't have the talent, but once he took it because he wasn't getting big money and he wasn't playing at like the biggest club like Liverpool or one of the biggest clubs. And once he took it, I mean, he didn't get minutes sometimes, and it was frustrating. But once it just didn't work out for him immediately, it's like, oh, whatever. I've done what I have. I've made my big team. I've played for the national team. I can just chill out for the rest of my career. It's like, no, dude. Like, you have a talent. You have a purpose to use it. If not for us, for yourself. And the fact that he just never seemed to want to do it. I mean, it's very frustrating. And it just impresses me thinking about it. And hopefully, he's used as a cautionary tale for other people to know that if you have the talent, commit to it, or just get out.
Right.
Don't cheat yourself and don't cheat the teams that take you in, because I'm sure that all those teams that took him in had high hopes for him, and they never got much out of him after 2015. So it's frustrating for both sides. If your heart's not in it, you made enough money, go do what you want. It's fine, but don't cheat the fans and don't cheat the team. That's all I'm saying.
Be about your business. That's all I got to say. And on that note, let's move on to our next topic. The news of the day, of course, Informer reporting that our ever-intelligent FA president, Kokis, got in touch with the one and only Arsene Wenger.
You mean the FA president or another president?
Yeah, well, both are the FA president and his boss, the country's president, Mr. Vucic, got in touch with Arsene Wenger about the Serbia job. Of course, Wenger turned it down because, can you imagine? Like,
why would he do that?
What are the odds? What are the odds that Kokis, one, speaks English, two, speaks French?
Right.
The guy can't even speak proper Serbian.
Right.
No education. Like, what is he going to talk to Arsene Wenger about? And Arsene Wenger has no idea who he is. How did this conversation go? I wish this was recorded and on record, just so the world can laugh at this pathetic attempt to speak to a man that's you're not. I mean, we have to
considering who told us about what happened. Because during the news source, we have to check whether it even happened. That's the first thing, or maybe it's just a late April Fool's joke.
Well, I think that's their private source, right? That's their own, who they're owned by, right? So I think this is something that they're putting out there because when, we get a manager that's not so, sexy or whatever, they'll say, well, we tried to get Wenger, we tried to get so-and-so, right?
Remember the Carlo Ancelotti rumors after Muslim was fired? Remember the whole...
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
But guys...
Exactly. So it's something like that, right? It's like, oh, we're not going to get so-and-so, but you can't hate on us. We tried our best. Look who all the people we talked to. And they just didn't want the job.
Yeah.
And then they'll use that as an excuse. But I think this says more about the search. Clearly, the president's going to be very involved. Even in his press conference, he said, things need to change. This is probably a horrible thing that he's getting more involved.
Yeah.
Look, what are your thoughts on what's happening with our manager search and how things are going to go?
Well, brothers, I have great news, man. I was just doing some research, and Javier Clemente is available again. So fingers crossed. Fingers crossed we can get him again, dude.
Ivan Ergic dislikes this very much.
Exactly, man. I mean, who even knows anymore, Milos, man? It's become a total shit show, for lack of a better term, man. Now I think we see the bigger picture and kind of how everybody is coming out and is like, Vidic needs to be, or at least a few notable players like Matic or like Vidic needs to be the president. And I can imagine if Vidic called Wenger, that conversation will go a lot differently if it even happened.
Right.
So the fact that the Serbian president is getting involved, yeah, I'm not too big of a fan of that. And also, aren't there some sort of rules in UEFA or FIFA about the entanglement of politics and the soccer federations? And
didn't somebody get banned? What was the country? Nigeria or something? They got banned because their FA was involved in politics.
Right. So I don't know if they are even aware of that rule. But I definitely would be, because it would suck. It would suck even more if we just got banned for doing some political backdoor scheming to get a new manager, or a new president.
Because it's not like it's never happened before.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. These guys are pros. What the hell am I talking about?
Yeah, they come on, man. These guys have been scamming.
Let me give them some credit. Yeah,
20 years.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, man. But what to say about it other than it's a shit show, man? And it's like let's just see what sticks to the wall at the end of the day, man.
Yeah, and I also saw the meeting last week with Dubakovic and the FSS, apparently a 3.5-hour meeting where he put forward a 120-page analysis of our Euro qualifying failure, and they didn't make a decision on his future. Apparently they're going to meet again on the 15th, where a decision is expected to be made. I mean, I respect that he made, a large analysis and all that, but I mean, what is the point of all this? What is the point of all this? Also, what are your thoughts? Where is this going?
First of all, shame on you, Luca, for ever doubting our great president and all his.
My fault. Yeah, you don't apologize publicly.
Never lived better.
Yeah.
Never lived better. Zlatnodova and so on and so forth. Regarding Dubakovic, I'm in the minority, but I want him to stay, and I want to give a couple of reasons as to why that is. Listen, the Scotland game was a failure, and it's not the fault of the FSS. It is not the fault of politics or stuff like that. It was the fault of the players and the fault of the manager. But there are a couple of reasons why. First of all, when Ivica Osim failed to qualify for Euro 88, he stayed in that role because the FSS, even though it wasn't great at that point, or the Football Federation of Yugoslavia, they trusted him because they knew that he was doing something right. He was introducing young players into the team like, Stojkovic and Panchev and others. And then 2 years later, we're nearly making it to the World Cup semifinal, and we saved the penalty from the greatest, who unfortunately passed away. So God rest his soul, Diego Armando Maradona. We were that close to making it to the semifinals, and we made the Euros after that. And had the current people who run the FA stayed at that point, Ivica Osim would have never got that opportunity. I think the fact that Dubakovic came in the middle of the qualifiers, he didn't have enough time to prep his team. I think the way that he adjusted to things was very admirable. I think that the fact that we went to a 3 at the back formation, which he's not known for playing at, was something that I give him credit for. And the fact that he introduced some players that were crucial. I mean, he gave Gudel and Lazovic and Juricic their chances, and they were amongst our best players, and they weren't in the team before that. When we were playing well, we had some of our best games in the last 10 years or so, against Norway and Russia. And I think that the non-footballing things that plagued us in the past, he didn't have them here. All the things were footballing based, and all the things were, fairly regular and fairly normal. And I think that without any kind of a long-term system in place, if you don't build something for the next 40 years, you don't have to build something for the next 20 years. But if you don't build something for the next 4 years, you're just wasting time. I mean, we've changed everything. We've changed players, we've changed managers, we've changed, even the presidents of the FA have changed like 3 times. The one thing that hasn't changed is that today for tomorrow principle that only still prevails here. And I think that considering what he's done and considering the good things he's done, especially considering the fact that Radovan Juricic was given 2 terms in a year and a half, Mark Krstajic was given a year and a half, like guys that, even though Dubakovic is not a great manager, he wouldn't be my 5th or 6th choice. But you look at some of the guys that have been given chances before him, if they can get that kind of time, he deserves like 6 years at the helm. Like, it's about the principles of work that you've established, and also the fact that, listen, I mean, if Iceland can be managed by Lars Lagerbäck at age 67 and they're fine with it, and I think when he took the job was 60. I mean, age is not a factor here unless Dubakovic's health is an issue, which I don't think it is. I say let him do his job, and I really believe that. And listen, it's a nice, I guess, segue into the Vidic letter, or the Matic letter that he wrote, talking about putting, Nemanja Vidic as the one guy who's in the FA, or people talking about changing managers. First of all, if he were to change managers, I did a detailed rundown of all our managers. You have Marko Nikolic, who's in Lokomotiv Moscow, doing a great job, even though they lost to Salzburg a few days ago, but he's been doing very well there. Why would he take the job? They've given an offer to Pixie multiple times. He's never taken it. Not saying that he's not going to take it, but would it even be worth it for him to take? He's had a bad experience as Zvezda president and as the FA president, and he's lost more games at Guangzhou Verdun than he won. So how good of a hire would it really be? I appreciate his greatness as a player and even as his knowledge as a manager. He's probably the one, if anybody gave the context to Arsene Wenger, he is. But, he'd have the authority, but does he even want the job considering the amount of money he's getting paid? They've given the offer to Slaviša Šikanović 3 or 4 times. He said no. Ivic and Paunovic are tied up and doing very well in the championship right now. Siniša Mihajlović had a bad experience and is having health issues. So you don't really have anyone that you can take, apart from maybe Vladan Milovic, who is the only manager who's had some sort of success and who would be maybe willing to take it. You don't really have anyone else. You don't have the patience to give a chance to guys like, maybe even a Nemanja Vidic or Ilija Stolic or someone like that who'd build a 5 or 6 year plan, and then you've got Lalatovic and Kosanovic, and I don't want to talk about them. I mean, it's disgraceful. Those are your options. you might as well stick with Domakovic. But I've said the manager is the least of the worries. I mean, it's the entire system in place. It's how managers are picked. It's how the team's being set up. It's how the league's being run. It's how the whole system is working. And the fact that people are focusing always on the effect, they're never focusing on the cause. They're even talking these days about the Scotland game. The Scotland game is the cause, or is the effect of the cause. And the cause was that you wasted a year and a half with a guy who didn't know what he was doing at manager. He fought with 8 or 9 players in the team that didn't want to show up and play. We wasted half of the qualifiers, and we didn't have enough time to amply prepare our games. Steve Clark has been the manager of Scotland for like 25, 30 games. I mean, he's been there, and he's been playing, and he's been preparing the team. Domakovic had 6 or 7 legitimate, meaningful games to prepare. So you have to work in conditions that are sensible to work. And changing the manager, I mean, topsing and turving and changing now, what is that going to do? Unless you're telling me you're going to give it.
Yeah, but Alex, you got to think this way. I mean, the Scotland game was a very deep cut. Do you think he's lost the room after a failure like that? I think it has an effect on the player's confidence.
It all depends. I mean, listen, the player's confidence, I don't think that he was the one that ran into the player's confidence. I mean, for example, he was at the Switzerland game. We lost it because Kostai tramrodded the confidence of the players and the tactics. For the Scotland game, the players just let us down big time. That's the first time that I can legitimately say that. And whether he's lost him or not lost him, I think, look, all the players showed up and played for him, apart from Monty, who retired for other reasons, which we still don't know why he retired, and I'm going to have a big rant on his letter, which was disappointing to me. I'm not saying that it was inefficient. It was just disappointing. But all the guys were there. Milinkovic Savic was there. Jovic was there. I mean, he got Jovic playing much, much better. Serbian Milinkovic Savic played his best game in his national team career under him. So it's the notion that he's done a bad job. I'm not saying he's done great, but I think that he's been building something, and I think if you just let him build something long term, I think all the players want to play for him. I think he's given everyone a chance. I can't sit here and say that he's been unfair. Maybe he could have given more minutes to Marko Grujic, but apart from that, I think he's been very correct with all the players. Only they can answer. Only they know the answer to that question. The whole Kolarov thing was handled poorly, but Kolarov was leaving anyways. I mean, he's 35 and he's not going to be there for much longer, and he said that he would even call him back. So I really think that he should stay. If he did the analysis, which I don't think is untrue because of the way he works, but how efficient was it is a different thing. But I think it's a principle of work that he has is a sign that I think he wants to stay. I think all the other managers that have been in this job have been like, I just want to get over and done with this. But he's like, no, I want to stay. I want to do something here. So, but again, changing the manager is just. You're just replacing a flat tire with a new tire, and that tire's going to break. If the engine is bad, the car's not going to run either way. You have to change the engine, and we're not changing the engine. And
I think a big negative is you mentioned the almost 2 years that were wasted with Krstajic. I mean, my God, that was just
the eight players fighting the 5-0 loss to Ukraine. The fact we never had a system in place, we never had a formation in place. He never
had any control on the team. It was all chaos. There's one. He's a interesting personality, of course. So it was just a chaos, right? He's conflict with players. He didn't know what he was doing. The fact that he just everything was so wrong. You could tell he wasn't right for a job. You could tell the players had no faith in him, especially after the Switzerland game. And that's just a waste. I mean, he shouldn't have been hired in the first place, and then should have been fired after the World Cup. We could have started something new with someone else. But the one time decided to keep a manager. The one time he decided to keep a manager after a failure, it's the dumbest thing ever. It doesn't make any sense of why they wasted all that time. That manager, after the World Cup, should have been building a new generation for this qualifying cycle and the next one, which Tabakovic kind of started to do in these last games. He's kind of blooding the old team with the new team. The guys like Jovic, SMS, younger guys like that, with the older guys like Mitrovic and Tadic, Kolarov, and stuff like that. So I see a lot of your points. He has done a better job. I think most of us didn't expect to even beat Norway. So that was a pleasant surprise. But I think after a failure like Scotland and not qualifying, I just don't see FSS keeping him.
I don't see it keeping him. I think he's going to get sacked. I'm just saying that there are far bigger issues than him at hand.
No doubt.
He's done a very decent job.
No doubt. There are, man. I will say I wouldn't mind keeping Tumbakovic if we had lost that Scotland game any other way. Like that we were actually fighting and, we were just, like that Australia loss. As tough as that was to swallow in the World Cup, at least we were trying to score goals. We just were unlucky, if anything, I would say, because of the chances that we missed. But the way that we lost that Scotland game, it's like we didn't even show up to play, and that's what bothers me most. And with somebody like and with somebody like Tumbakovic, man, it seems like that as a federation, we're settling for a coach. You know, based on the talent that we have, we should have a much better coach. Somebody
I agree.
who knows what
I
they're
absolutely
doing.
agree. But when
Right.
you fire your manager after he qualifies you for the World Cup, you're not going to get the confidence of any other manager.
No,
who's gonna walk
and
you
I
in.
definitely agree
I
with
mean,
that point as well.
You
Right.
shot yourself in the foot harder than you could possibly ever shoot yourself in the foot. I mean, they've hamstrung themselves. There's nothing they can do. I mean, the only way you can do it is to lure a foreigner to come in who doesn't know what's going on.
Right.
We tried that with Dika Vokat and Clemente and see how that turned out.
Right.
You know.
No, all fair points, man. So basically, right now, what we have is like, as a national team, we're in limbo, and we don't know which way we're gonna go. What I want to know is, was the federation planning on sacking Tumbakovic, and his 120-page report was just so good that they had to delay the vote to sack him? That's what I want to know. Because if that's the case, then
It might have been a respect thing, honestly. Like, you know, like, wow, this guy actually put in a good effort on keeping his job.
Right.
Let's let him keep for another couple of weeks. Because I think if he stays, I will be beyond surprised. I will be so shocked. And if he does stay, it's not a horrible thing.
Yeah, it's not horrible. Yeah.
Not the best quality coach, but you can say that he didn't have any issues. Yeah, exactly. And the more important thing is, once he came, they did bring a lot of guys back into the squad, and he didn't have any public ugly, arguments or disputes or stupid shit like we had before with the players, which is, it's positive. It's a good thing, but the loss and that, and I don't know if the players believe in him, to be honest, and that's a hard thing to get. He can get him back. Maybe he has the experience. He's done some good things before in the past, but it's tough to say for me if it'd be the right call or not. If they do keep him, I'll respect them more if they keep him than if they hire some random foreigner. That's just going to take, it seems like we're going to, from when Krstajic was at the World Cup, he was the lowest paid manager by far, I believe. And now that, Vučić is involved, or he's always involved, but now he's more involved, seems like we're going to go up in pay scale, at least, for the next manager.
The fact that they're even throwing the Arsene Wenger report out means that they want to offer serious money. It's like, if you can lure Arsene Wenger to even talk to you, it's like, you got to have some serious money, considering he hasn't managed anywhere. So they're clearly throwing, the kitchen sink at it. They're just throwing it. This is exactly, that's what I think. I think this is going to set up to be some kind of foreigner, maybe someone like Carlos Queiroz, who just got fired by Colombia. Wouldn't surprise me at all if someone like that was brought in, someone that's kind of in their later years, kind of past their success, and they're going to just swindle, which is for $1 million or $2 million. That's what this seems like to me. He shouldn't be the one making the decision, obviously, because he's a football fan.
Yeah. It's crazy that we've been talking about him making the decision of who's going to be the next coach of the national team. Right?
That's what it's going to come down to, man. But
that's the situation of the country, because we've allowed it to happen. I mean, it's a segue to listen. People have slammed Nemanja Matic for what he said and how glowingly he spoke about him, which I wasn't happy about. It's like, listen, we've tried to keep the show apolitical. We don't want to talk about it, but it's a fact. It's a topic that we can't escape. I would much rather changes be made if they're positive changes. I don't care who makes them. I don't care about the shady backroom.
Me neither.
I don't care about the personal pride that you get because I fixed it. Just fix it. Like, for God's sake, we just want to see a team that fights well and plays well and does the things properly.
Yeah. And I mean,
listen, letter. If you don't get on his good side, is he ever going to make a change? You don't have a situation where you can create some kind of uprising, even though what Vidic did was create, some kind of chaos. But you don't have that kind of support and strength to knock him down and to have him not be an important part of it. And there have been situations where people have come to him, and I know this from experience, because I know people that have had it, that have come to try to talk to him about, charitable foundations and stuff that's completely not political, completely not stuff like that. But because he's not the one making the decisions, he's insulting and he doesn't want to do it. So you almost have to get on his good side if you want to get anything done. And ultimately, every decision is going to come down to him. I mean, Tumbakovic got hired. The way he got hired, the manner, leaving the game against Kosovo of all teams, 6 hours before kickoff and stuff like that. It's very, very Vučić-esque. So he's the one that's calling the shots in that.
Oh yeah, there's definitely political stuff involved in that, right? I mean, we know where that call came from for him not to play that game and all of that, right? And it's just so annoying, but it's things you have to discuss, obviously, because even Manch's letter, he was being very diplomatic in his letter, but he also said that he basically underhandedly said that nobody respects the president, the FA president, because someone like Vidic would have a lot more respect with players and in general, right?
Yeah,
but he didn't outright say that.
Like it all in like one block, like trying to force Nemanja to be the president. First of all, I have no doubts that he would give his effort. I mean, we don't even know if he wants the thing. We don't even know if he wants to be the president or that. Second of all, and I say that maybe we don't know if he wants it because Rikica Babovic, who is the Nova journalist, said that it's not typical of a guy like Nemanja to throw out a letter instead of doing like a press conference or something like that. Second of all, even if he takes the job, he has no previous experience. He's not been involved in Serbian football for 10 years. Third of all, bringing one guy in and bringing an ex-footballer in is not going to solve the thing. And I can give you an example as to why just bringing an ex-footballer in, even if he is an all-time great, he should be in the FA, obviously. But you have to bring in people, which I've been preaching about for multiple podcasts, that are smart managers and are smart in organization. It's a good example from the sporting director, Vlada Matijašević, and the previous sporting directors, who were, Goran Munjevčević and Darko Kovačević. Vlada Matijašević was not a great player. He was an average player, but he did good things with Čukarički. As a sporting director, Darko Kovačević and Goran Bunjevčević were great players, but they were inexperienced in that role. And what happened is, as a result of that, with Bunjevčević's tenure, we had the Muslim thing go down and SMS not playing. With Darko Kovačević, everything that could possibly go wrong did go wrong. I mean, he even came out and said that Krstajić was doing a fantastic job after losing 5-0 to Ukraine, which is the most scandalous statement that I've heard ever. And it's not a short amount of competition for that. With Vlada Matijašević, he came in and the things weren't great, but we didn't, players weren't canceling, and like you said, players weren't feuding, and everything was there. There was no politics, there was no incidents, even though we couldn't have incidents because of COVID. So you need people that understand organizational structures and that understand, business practices in that long-term, grander sense to manage things. And you need people that have fairly clean biographies and they're involved in sports, not people that are selling firecrackers at Fans Mikhailova 20 years ago, and all of a sudden they're millionaires and they can't even spell their name right. So it's and throwing it on, especially the fact that he came out when we're talking about Matic, we wanted to hear what were the reasons that you left. We know that you suggested something to them and that you left because of that, but what were the reasons? Was it playing time? Was it the fact that you didn't have the right manager? Was it bad formations? He just said, I told him to change things, and he didn't change it.
Yeah, I think he said all that indirectly, right? He said indirectly, I made some suggestions.
And directness, like, what was it? Who did you talk to? What did you tell them? Like, that's the kind of situation. I mean, listen, we living in Serbia or living in those places obviously are more involved than he is. He's playing matches every week. It's not his job to save Serbian football, but it was a great chance for him to come out and say some very precise things. I mean, Luka Milivojević came out and said what he said, when he was still playing for Crystal Palace, but he was very precise and said, they called me into a meeting. 5 people were sitting on the other side of me. And I mean, this sounds very True Detective-esque, but it really is like that. It's a soap opera. And it was very True Detective-esque, but it was 5 guys were sitting on the other side of me. We were talking about the Switzerland game, what I thought. They lied about me, this, and that. We didn't get any of that from them in Matic, and I think it was a really big missed opportunity. And then you have all the former ex-players coming out, talking about the Scotland game, It was just, Alexander Kate defending Kokiza and others as well. And then, Terzic coming out and saying, I mean, I don't even fault Zigic, of course. I can't be mad. I can't fault Zigic. No, that's what he said. Yeah, I love the guy. All the ex-players like Goran Drulic and others, again, focusing on the top situation where, just to finish, we're saying, well, you know what, Vojvodina won the cup and Partizan play the Europa League. 3 clubs are prospering and 20 other clubs are, bankrupt. They don't have their stadiums. They don't have, Afka Belgrade is, in the 4th league. They don't have enough money to pay for their locker rooms and lights. You're focusing on things that are completely irrelevant. Of course Zvezda is doing well because you're pushing all your money into one club. It's that's not how things should work. You have to have a balanced league. In Croatia, Dinamo Zagreb is the dominant team, but even Osijek and Hajduk and other teams can hang on and do okay occasionally because it's a structured league. It's a 10-team league. Here, it's all top heavy. You're all pushing it into national teams. You're pushing it into 2 or 3 clubs. You're not pushing it into developing the youth or developing things that should be beneficial for everyone. It's just me. But it's typical because people that run the thing and run the place. Simple cause and effect. And
people, all these players that are saying, it's not FSS fault that we lost the Scotland game. It's not about the Scotland game. It's about the system. they're not real. They're just missing the entire foundation of the issue. They're just talking about the one game or Zvezda playing in Europe. Like, it doesn't have anything to do with the FA. The money from the government and the money from sponsors and all that is going to Zvezda, and they put some good people in charge. They're getting things done. That's not the FA doing anything. And the national team as well. Like, of course, the FA's created a bad atmosphere, but national team is not the main job of the FA. It's actually the growth of the football in the country. And if you look at our youth development, if you look at our youth teams, we had some very strong youth teams in the recent years. We've gotten no results, very bad results for under 21.
When I say bad results, they collapsed.
Exactly. So as I'm saying, the results of all the youth teams are poor. The league is worse than ever. We have 20 teams in the league. I mean, what is going on? They're switching formations, one league format, next league format. It's just everything's so random.
Limiting 4 foreign players, forcing 2 young players to play when you know the money from the taxes is going for other things.
Lucas said this himself. We're throwing shit to the wall and hoping something sticks. This is like all these rules that they're implementing. The league format's changing every year. Foreigner limits changing every year. Under 21 require players to play, 2 or 3 every year. Things are just not organized, and the refereeing, it's just shambolic. They need to have a system in place where they're actually teaching these refs what to do. Because people say, it's corrupt league. The refs are paid. I don't even know if that's the case. I think the refs are amateurs. A lot of times, these guys are just missing amateur things in the game, and I think a lot of that is because they're not educated. Exactly, they're not educated enough to make these decisions. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm sure some of these refs are taking money because, let's face it, they're not being paid a lot. But at the end of the day, some of the mistakes they make, it's not even for the big teams that have the money. It's just because they're not capable of doing the job. They don't know. They don't have the tools. So these are the things that are main issues in our football: the grassroots growth. The facilities, the everything, that's the main problem. The national team and our clubs that are in Europe, that's like bottom issues right now.
The consequence of all the grassroots problems, you have grassroots, you have a good national team.
Yep.
You can't say the FA is doing a good job, even if we qualify for the Euros. You can't say the FA is doing a good job because everything else is in disarray. And that's the main problem that all these players are missing. Like, well, we were one penalty kick away from making it. Like, that does not change anything regards to our football and how bad things are. Sorry, we were one blown call away from getting it out the group in South Africa, and then the whole thing collapsed because we didn't get the job done. Use your principles and be consistent in what you're saying but then again, they sell themselves out for a bit of money and a bit of powder. So, who cares?
Agreed with everything you guys are saying, man. It is just simply sad that that's the state of things, and that it's also very interesting that the national team still has a fan base like us who are crazy enough to jump on a podcast and talk about this, every week.
We're masochists.
Even if we were worse at San Marino, I'll be watching every game. If my bosses had any access to like a Serbian national team fixtures list, they would realize that all my sick days are game days. So they're just firing me. If you look back 10 years on my work history, every sick day I've never been sick. I've just been watching the game.
And then you have Veli who takes the 3 days before the game and after the game as a sick day. So that's doing that. That's real commitment.
If I ever get a boss that's like a Serbian football fan, I'm screwed. Otherwise,
hey, you don't have to worry about that, Milos.
Yeah, well, the way crypto's going, right, we won't have any bosses ever again. So.
We won't have to work, dude. It's all good.
We're all bosses.
That's right. We'll be buying the FA.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, boys. Well, I think we should wrap it up on that.
I do have to say one last thing. It's maybe shout out, but I guess it's emotional, which I said in the middle of the show, but I have to say it again. Rest in peace to Diego Armando Maradona, one of the greatest players ever. Our connection with him was fairly limited, but I have the fortune of having family members who were at that game when he scored one of his best goals ever, the chip against Zvezda, the penalty that Tomislav Ivkovic saved against him in the World Cup in 1990 was huge, and it was important in his career. The Emir Kusturica film, which was shown a few days ago, was great. Highly recommend you check it out. And whatever you want to think about him, he had his highs, he had his lows, but he was one of the most passionate and one of the greatest players you will ever see. And ultimately a really good guy from everything I've got to know about him. And the fact that he's lived to 60 was a hell of a thing. You know, George Best also dying on the same day, and Fidel Castro dying on the same day was pretty spooky. But that's been a terrible year. But, you know, just use this message to just cherish the people that you love, cherish the athlete that you love, because you never know when they're going to leave. And yeah, I had to use this moment because it shook me up. The timing of it was pretty bad. And I'm hoping that God's making a hell of a team up there. So
That's true.
yeah, it's just a shout. I mean, Argentina's like in a state of mourning as they should be. Napoli's changing the name of the stadium. It's a huge loss. And also credit to Ghent for the lovely tributes that they had at the start of the game, and for all the clubs having a minute of silence. It was really great. And yeah, it's a huge loss, but you know, go home and watch some of his clips and just remember how beautiful football can be and why we love this game. And I leave with that. So.
Well said, man.
Amen. A great footballer, a legend, and a friend of Serbian Serbs from all accounts, which means a lot. And yeah, anytime someone of that stature passes away, it's crazy and it's unexpected. I know he was in the hospital, right? And then he was out of the hospital.
He had surgery, and he was out of the hospital, and then things kind of got complicated and things like that. But, you know, he lived life every day to the last. I mean, the fact that he made it to 60, considering all the things that happened in his life, is fantastic in and of itself. So, but he lived his life for 600 years, and if he could do it again, he would do it again. So live life every day, live life with the passion that he did, and commit yourself to loving something like he did. Like he loves football, not necessarily drugs, even though he maybe loved those more than football. But you know, to all the people listening to it, commit yourself to it. Watch some of his goals. Don't compare Messi and Ronaldo and Pele and guys like that. Just enjoy the man for who he was, and he wasn't just some guy. He was one of the greatest, if not the greatest. And I hope that his family and all the people that are close to him and all the people that are his fans, friends, or whatever, can enjoy and just spend time cherishing. And like one wise man said, don't be sad that it's over, be glad that it's happened. I think that's about it.